How three baselines are created. Baseline is one of the most important thing in project management. In PMP exam, scope baseline, schedule baseline, and cost baseline. We do each and everything for these three baselines. So how they are created and how they are managed is a very important thing. So let's see from the basic. The most important thing is to know that baselines basically does not start with the scope. It goes back to the project charter. When project charter is formed, we need to see how the project charter is formed. Project charter is formed with the help of business documents, and when the business documents are basically formed with the help of need assessment. Once business documents are formed, like business case, benefit management plan, they help in building project charter. Once the project charter, a formal document that authorize the project is formed, then we go to project management plan. Project management plan, what is project management plan? It is the mother of all plans, mother or father, whatever you want to call. We have three baselines and 9 major plans, actually 10 major plans inside it. So we get project management plan. With the help of project management plan, we went towards our three baselines. The three baselines are scope, schedule, and cost. We will take them one by one. So first we went to the scope baseline. So the first process is the plan, scope management plan. As a result, we get two plans, scope management plan and requirement management plan. Scope management plan tells us how to manage the scope, how to validate the scope, how to make WBS, work breakdown structure, how to make scope baseline, then how to stop scope creep, how to control scope, how to validate scope. The second plan we get here is requirement management plan. Requirement management plan tells us how to collect the requirement, how to basically manage the requirement documentation, how to manage the requirement traceability, and how to manage the requirements till the end of the processes. Okay. Then the next step is collect requirement. The collect requirement, we are collecting all the requirement. We are collecting functional requirement, non-functional requirement, solution requirement, stakeholder requirement, business requirement. So we are collecting all the requirement. Many tools and techniques are being used there. We will discuss them now while. Then we get, as a result of collect requirement, we get requirement documentation, all the requirement, functional, non-functional, and requirement traceability matrix. What is requirement traceability matrix? It is a matrix which shows linkage from start till end. What is the status of each requirement in all these process? This is shown by requirement traceability matrix. So now in collect requirement, we have all the requirements. We have collected all the requirements from all the stakeholders, from all the people. So now all the requirements are there. We need to check which requirements are in the scope and which requirements are out of the scope. So we put scope filter here. And in define scope, we say that this requirement is in the scope and these requirements are out of the scope. As a result, we get project scope statement. Project scope statement is a detailed statement. It has acceptable criteria in it. It has what are the assumptions, what are the constraints, everything is in this. Now we move to the create WBS process. In project scope statement, we have defined all deliverables, how deliverables would we look like. So here, basically we divide the deliverables or work into smaller parts. Here we are creating work breakdown structure, something like this. If this is a deliverable, we create small areas. We create work breakdown structure, okay? And we create work breakdown dictionary. Vanita, if I say you what is meant by, or maybe go and do work with this 1.1.1, 1.1.1.2, it is very difficult to understand what is this. So in order to understand them, we need to have a work breakdown structure dictionary. Work breakdown structure dictionary tells us all the relationship, all those things that we need. So as a result, we get scope baseline. Scope baseline contains approved version of project scope statement, work breakdown structure, and work breakdown structure dictionary. Very important thing. The lowest part of work breakdown structure is called as work package. Work package, okay? And here this is called control account. In order to understand it in detail, let's go to the detailed document of flowcharts. Okay, we started with the business documents. How business documents are created? We have two business documents, business case and benefit management plan. That is the thing that is written in the business case, and business case is used for basically feasibility, who will be having the business, what are the cost benefit analysis, what are the valuables of this benefit, how to select the project. In benefit management plan, we are checking what are the benefits of this project, who will be the owner of this project, what are the timelines when these benefits will be realized, how to optimize these benefits. So these are two types of business documents. Why, what we are doing? Once again, we have made scope baseline here. I'm going to explain scope baseline in detail. Then we will have schedule baseline in detail. Then cost baseline in detail. So business document is. Then we move to the project charter. Here we have project charter as well as assumption log. This is a mistake. Here is assumption log. Project charter and assumption log is created in develop project charter. We utilize the inputs as business documents which we previously created, OPS, tools, template, lesson length, EF, the custom, culture, infrastructure, and tools and techniques we utilize, of course, expert judgment, known as subject matter expert, data gathering techniques, brainstorming, that is idea generation technique, interviews, one-to-one, we are having a conversation in order to get the confidential information out of people. Focus group of people, focus people come together and they discuss the problem. Now, focus group does not have to be a senior management always. We can get a focus group of drivers to discuss them how to basically make driving more safe. So focus group can be for any people with which we want to discuss how to solve this problem. Normally it is 8 to 12 people. It is led by a trainer or moderator and it is a very structured conversation. Then we have meetings and then we have interpersonal team skills in which we manage the conflicts, we do the facilitations and we do the management of meeting. Anybody want? Okay. Then we go to the project management plan. Project management plan, as we discussed, is the mother of all plans, having 3 baselines and 10 plans. We get output as a project management plan. Almost same tools and technique are utilized there. In addition to different tool and technique that we utilized in develop project charter, we get checklist. In order to ensure checklist is used in order to ensure that all the documents we required are there. We are checking, okay, we have this, check. We have this, check, check, check. So we are checking all these documents in order to ensure that we have each and everything with us. Then we move to the scope. In scope, we know that in order to create scope baseline, we need to go through plan scope management, collect requirement, define scope, and create WBS. Let's move there. Okay. Plan scope management. In plan scope management, we create 2 plans, scope management plan and requirement management plan. Let's see ITQ, then we will look with in these 2 detail. Inputs, we had project charter. The project charter will come into all planning process. We have plan, project management plan. It will come here, project documents, or the register or stakeholder register will come here. We have EF, OPS. The tools and technique are similar almost. The only thing the difference is alternate analysis. We are looking at the possibility, do this or do that, do this or do that. Then let's look at the scope. So in scope management plan, basically we decide how to arrive at the baseline, how to make a scope baseline, who will approve the baseline. As we said, scope baseline is a combination of 3 things: approved project scope statement, WBS and WBS technique. So who will approve the scope baseline? What type of cycle, project predictive or plan driven, which cycle we are using, how the work breakdown structure will be made, and how to validate the scope, how to basically accept the deliverables. Then in requirement management plan, we will see how to collect the requirements, what are the methods we are going to use, how to prioritize the requirement, which template we are going to use, how to look at the traceability structure, and how to validate the requirements. So that's about scope plan and requirement. Next process is with the help of requirement management plan, charter, plan, documents, business documents, we go into the collect requirement. Now in collect requirement, we get 2 types of documents. Requirement documentation, having all the requirements in check. We will discuss this. And requirement traceability metrics, a matrix showing the requirement from start till end. But let's look at the tools and technique of collect requirement. We have a lot of tools and technique here. First, expert judgment, we know that. Then we have brainstorming. Brainstorming is always there's a storm in the brain. So whenever we have a storm in our brain, we get ideas. So ideas are generated in brainstorming. Focus group, we discuss questions. Interviews, we already discussed questionnaire and interviews. What is questionnaires and interviews? Basically, just like a survey we are sending out and there's a question and people are filling the questionnaire. We do this to get requirement very fast. If the audience is large and we want to get the requirement, So we use questionnaire and surveys. Then we get benchmarking. Benchmarking is what? We are comparing the standards of one thing with the other thing. Comparing the standards of one thing with the other thing to see where do we fall. Basically, we do benchmarking to identify the best practices and see how we can follow those best practices. That's what we do in benchmarking. So let's look at the prototype. In prototype, we make a product, we make a sample, or we make a drawing. For example, now this is a platinum ring. If I get an order to make 100,000 platinum rings, the best way is to make one sample, one prototype, and give it to the customer. The customer will look and have a feel of it. Okay, this is okay. This is according to my standards. The diamond inside it is okay. The size of the diamond is okay. All these things. It is sharp. It is not sharp. It is smooth. So I have given a prototype to them, and they have accepted the prototype. So now I can go and move into the production. Then we have context diagram. Context diagram show visual depiction how the process people are interlinked with each other. For example, we are using Zoom. How computer interact with the Zoom? How internet interact with the Zoom? Just one second. So then we go with the interpersonal team skills. We have facilitation. We facilitate people. That is facilitation. Then observation. We are looking at it. Now observation can be active observation. Like if someone is doing it and you don't understand what they are doing, you go and you look at them and you ask them. You start having conversation. So sometimes observation is also called as job shadowing. If you tell somebody how to do this, that is job shadowing. You're looking at that. It also comes under the type of observation. Then in data representation, we have mind mapping. These words you see are mind map. Then in affinity diagram, what is affinity diagram? This is very important to understand. Okay, what do we have here? In basically brainstorming, ideas are generated, and if we have these sticky notes, ideas are placed on sticky notes. This. They are placed randomly. There is no order in them, and there can be redundancy. Ideas are repeating. Okay, so what do you do? Affinity diagram. You classify those ideas. You make those ideas into rows or column or whatever structure you want. You classify those ideas maybe under one heading, under two heading, all those things. You classify those ideas. Okay, that is affinity diagram. Now decision making, we have multi-criteria analysis. So what is multi-criteria? A very easy way to understand. Okay, I want to eat something good tonight. What should I do? Okay, let me make the multi-criteria for that. The food should be chicken. It should be properly cooked. It should be spicy. It should be hygienic. It should be cost effective. So I have made a criteria, all those things. So now I can rate from where I can eat that. Maybe KFC, maybe some Hardee's, Howdy. So I can put the criteria and decide along with the help of these criteria. That is basically decision making. Then we go with the voting. Voting is a very important technique. You use voting a lot. So how to use the voting? Let's see. We have three options: A, B, C, and there are 10 people to vote. If all 10 vote the same option, we call it as unanimity or unanimous decision. Unanimity or unanimous decision. Now take another side. Six people vote for A, three people for B, one people for C. So this is called majority. When you have greater than 50% people voting on the same side, we called it as majority. Now let's take another example of another type of basically voting, that is called polarity. What happens here? Four people voted for A, three for B, and three for A. 4C, 3B, 3A. This is called polarity. We didn't get the greater than 50%, but still we get more people. Now the fourth type of the voting is very interesting. That is known as autocratic. Let's say there is one boss. The one person takes the decision for complete group. That is called autocratic or dictatorship. That is called autocratic or dictatorship. One person takes the decision for entire group. So this is called voting. Okay. Now one tool and technique is left. That is nominal group technique. Nominal group technique is a special type of nominal group technique. This one. It's a special type of facilitation workshop which happens in 4 steps. Step number 1, focus group came. They generate ideas, that is brainstorming. We classify those ideas, that is affinity diagram, and then we do voting. to select those ideas. Once again, nominal group technique is a combination of four tools and techniques. Focus group, focus group come there, they generate ideas in brainstorming, then we classify those ideas in affinity diagram, then we rank or vote on them. That is basically voting. So combination of all these four is called nominal group technique. Okay, let's move forward. Now let's discuss about the requirement types. We can have business requirement that solve the problem of business. We can have quality requirement that this thing is required by quality. Transition requirement, when we are moving from one stage to another stage, there are some requirements. Like you are doing PMP, you already taken the training, now you are going into the coaching. So this is a transition requirement, moving from one place to another. Then we have stakeholders, some requirements are requested by stakeholders, then solution requirement. Solution can be a functional requirement or non-functional requirement. Now, requirement must be traceable. These are the characteristic of requirement. They must be complete. They must be consistent. Require, every requirement must be measurable, testable. Every requirement must have a requirement and owner. And we must prioritize the requirement. And we must have a requirement acceptable criteria. All these things are basically all these things work. Each and every requirement is written in requirement traceability matrix. Just to give you idea, this is basically requirement traceability matrix. This is requirement traceability matrix which links each and every requirement. You have requirement, what business need it is filling, what objective, each and everything is written in the requirement traceability matrix. This is clear?
Uh, are
Okay.
you sharing?
So this is requirement traceability matrix, a matrix having a linkage of all the requirements from start till the end. What is the requirement? Which objective it is meeting? How you measure that requirement? Which WBS linkage it has? So all the relationship is given by requirement traceability matrix. Just to have an idea of affinity diagram, in brainstorming, ideas are generated. In affinity diagram, we classify those ideas. So once again, data gathering technique, brainstorming is clear, interviews, question survey, focus, benchmarking, checklist, we check yes, no, check sheets, we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We will be using check sheet in control quality. Market research, we utilize this technique and basically procurement. Statistical sampling, we use this in control quality. Okay, decision making, we discuss unanimity, majority, plurality, multi-criteria, autocratic. So let's in define scope, you basically make a project scope statement. Project scope statement is a detailed statement having acceptable criteria, what is inside the scope, what is outside the scope, how you measure what is your in scope, and you get documents update. Basically, how do you make this? You get project documents in which we have requirement documentation, and you get product analysis, a very important tool here. All other tools and techniques we have already discussed. So project scope statement basically describe product project scope in detail. What is the acceptance criteria? What are the deliverables? What are the constraints? What are the assumptions? What is included? What is included? What is excluded from the scope? Everything is included in the project scope state. The last step in which we make the scope baseline is create WBS. We make scope baseline and we make project documents update here. Plans are updated, documents are updating, scope management plan, scope statement, requirement documentations, uh, tools and technique, expert judgment, and most importantly, decomposition. We are breaking the scope into the work
Smaller.
breakdown structure, smaller part that is work package and a control account, all those things. The smallest area is called work package. So here we get a scope baseline. Scope baseline is a combination of approved project scope statement, work breakdown structure, and work breakdown structure dictionary. So this complete our first baseline.
Schedule management. Now here we are going to create schedule baseline. Schedule baseline is the second baseline. Initially we created scope baseline. Now we are going to create schedule baseline. How schedule baseline is created? First we go to plan schedule management and we produce schedule management plan. Then we go to define activities. We get activity list attributes, milestone list. Then we sequence those activity. Which activity will come first, which activity will come second, and so on. Then we estimate their duration. We utilize estimation techniques here. Then we develop the schedule. Once the schedule is developed in monitoring and control, basically we control those schedule. So let's move. The first process, plan schedule management, get the output as schedule management plan. Now this is a plan. Like all plans, it tells us how to do. It will tell us how to do define activities, how to basically break down work package into activities. Then we have sequence activity. We sequence the activity, which activity come first, which activity comes second, which third, and we see the sequence in those activities. It will tell us. Then how to do estimation, which tools to use, which techniques to use. All these things will be done in schedule management, and then develop schedule, of course. Same as we develop the plan scope, same tools and technique. We see alternate strategies in data analysis, expert judgment meeting. This is a mistake here. It is not work performance data, here it is enterprise environmental factor. So, project charter, plan, EF, OPA, output, schedule management plan. So in defined activity, the work package that were created in the scope baseline, we get those work package and we divide them into smaller parts. For example, if previously we had like, let me put this example. Let's say we had this. Now these were, let's say, work package. Now we divide them into activities A, activities B, activities C. We divide the work package further into smaller part through decomposition, and we utilize the rolling wave planning technique. What is rolling wave planning? If we know the detail of any activity, we planned it in detail. But if we don't know the detail, we put it a role and we put it at a higher level, the level we know, and we say that when we go to future, when we go a little further and we know the detail, we will explain it. So that is rolling wave plannings. Then we go with the meetings, decomposition, breaking down. Since we are breaking down the work package, so in project management plan, scope baseline is the fundamental thing. As we know, scope baseline is work breakdown structure dictionary, and project scope statement. And work breakdown packages are work packages are in work breakdown structure. So we are dividing this thing as basically in decomposition, and we are making activity list, all the list of activity A, B, then activity attributes. This tells us what are the relationship we are going to have, what are the dependencies that will be in those activities. Then milestone list of all activities, the major activities, how we are going to see them. It will have that. Milestone is a special activity actually, having zero duration. Most of the time they are contractually obligated, like first activity, second activity, something like that. So they are mostly start and the last activity of the project. Okay, so we have activity list, attributes, and milestone list. Let's move first forward. We have now activities. Let's say we have activity A, activity B, activity C, activity D. We need to check what is the sequence between them, which activity will come first, and what will be the relationship between them. The sequence activity will tell us that. As a result, we get project schedule network diagram, a network diagram with all the relationship and duration, everything in it. ITTOs are similar, that project plan, EF, OPM, maybe charter along the way. And the tools and technique, let's go with the tools and technique. Project management information system is like Microsoft Project, Microsoft Visual. Everything you need to communicate the information, we utilized project management information system for that. Everything we need to communicate, PMI system is used for that. Let's see what is leads and lag. Let's say two activities are there. Okay, before that, let's see what is finish to start and finish all the relationship. If activity A ends and then activity B starts, we say that they have a finish to start relationship. Most logical relationship is finish to start. The predecessor, the previous activity ends, then the next activity starts. It is called finish to start relationship. Let's move to the next and see what is start to start. Okay, start to start. A activity and B activity. Both activity started simultaneously. For example, as soon as you turn the AC on, the compressor start running. When one activity start, the second activity started automatically. Okay, so activity A started, B started simultaneously. We called it as start to start. The third relationship is finish to finish. When activity A ends, the B ends simultaneously. When activity A ends, The B activity ends simultaneously. We don't know when they started, but we know one thing: the activity ends at the same time, finish to finish. For example, you are going on your car, you turn your as soon as you turned your car off, the tape or LCD that was running in the car also turned off. Maybe it is possible that we have been driving for 2 hours and we started the LCD like 30 minutes ago. So, but the activity ends simultaneously. This is called finish to finish. The four logical relationship that we have is a very rarely used logical relationship, that is start to finish. Activity B, the successor activity, cannot finish unless the activity A starts. The best example that I have got for them is when two people are working in shifts, like two security guards, they are working in shift. The shift of the unless the shift of the night security guard cannot end till the morning security guard came. You see, in the what happens, you have to give handover, so there's an overlap. Activity B cannot end unless the activity A starts. This is the most rarest relationship, start to finish. Now we go to leads and lag and see them. Let's say we have two activity A and activity B. We have two activities, activity A and activity B, and we want to see what is the relationship. We can see that is a finish to start relationship. According to a relationship, the activity B must start as soon as the activity A ends. But there is some kind of delay of starting in the activity. That delay is called as basically lag. That delay is called lag. This is clear? Okay, now let's look at the lead. The lagged activity basically get delayed in finish to start. If the activity gets lead, how it happens? The activity becomes parallel to it. Now the plan was that activity A happens like for 7 days and activity B start after 7 days. Instead of that, if activity B started on 6 days before, we say that the activity B is leading activity A. Activity B is leading activity A. Successor activity is leading predecessor activity. We are done with the leads and lag. Let's see basically dependency determination. There are the biggest type of the dependency is, or the most important is mandatory dependency. Mandate is also called as hard logic. You cannot do one task without happening of other task. For example, unless you get a permit from the government, you cannot start doing your building. This is called mandatory dependency, that this thing has to happen, then you can do the next activity. This is called mandatory dependency or hard logic. We go to now, this was mandatory dependency. The example I have given is that you need to take a permit from the government. This is called external mandate. You are taking a permit for external party. This is called external mandate. It can also be internal, like you have to take permit from your company, or you have to do some activity before that. So it can also be called as internal mandatory. Remember, this is called hard logic or mandatory dependencies. Similarly, we can have discretionary dependencies, or that is also called as preferred logic, preferred practices, or soft logic. For example, most of the time people eat dessert after the food, but that is not like the hard logic. You can eat even before, but there is a preferred practices that people eat dessert after the food, they drink water before the food. They are considered as a preferred practices. Now they can be internal or external. This is called discretionary dependencies. Okay, now let's see dependency determination done. Precedence diagramming method. Let's see. We have activities A, B, C, D. They have relationship between them, finish to start. All of them. This is finish to start. This is finish to start A. This is also finish to start A. And this is finish to start BC. So if we make a network diagram or precedence diagram, it is also called as activity on node or activity on arrow. This is B, this is C, this is called activity D. Okay, this logical relationship is called precedence diagramming method. Doing activities like this is called precedence diagramming method. Now with this, I am also going to give you a shortcut because in exam, we don't have the luxury to calculate the critical path in the best way or the right way. So I would say let's put a logical way or maybe how to calculate the float and duration. Let me put activity A duration 5, B duration 6, C 7, D 8. So let's see how the critical path is calculated here. Activity A 5, we have 6, 7, 8. So if you get a question in the exam, you have 4 to 5 activities, calculate the critical path, you just go there, 5 plus 7, 12, 12 plus 8. So this is 20, we have path ACD 20, we have a path ABD, 5 plus 6, 11, 11 plus 8, 19. So ABD is 19, this is 20. So ACD basically becomes our critical path. Critical path is the longest path having the longest duration. Okay.
Mm.
So
Okay.
how to calculate the float of other activities? You see, the path has a duration 20, the second path has a duration 19. So path of the float of the other path is 1. If we check A is common in both of them, D is common, B is different, so the float of B is 1. What is float? Float is the amount by which activity can delay without delaying the successor activity or without delaying any other activity. Let me give you another example because you can get a 1 or 2 question and I want you to solve it in the best possible way. Okay, just 1 second. Let me open my board. Okay, let's say we get 6 activity A, B, C, D, E, F, and the relationship between them is finish to start. Start means this is the first activity. Finish to start A, finish to start A, finish to start A, finish to start B, C, D, finish to start E. I want you to stop the video right now and make a network diagram for it. Next slide. So now we have estimate activity duration. In estimate activity duration, we are basically estimating how much duration it will take to make something. Okay. So we are utilizing 4 major type of estimation techniques. Okay.
Mm.
4 major type of estimation technique. Analogous estimation, same. Analogous comes from the words analogy, and that means same. So let's say if it took you 1 hour to make a food, okay, if it took you 1 hour to make a food, if you want to again cook the same food, how much time it will take? Approximately 1 hour. Okay, let's say you make a bowl of rice, it took you to make it, in my term, biryani. So 1 hour, how much time it will take to make again one bowl? It will approximately,
Mm.
I understand that it will take less time, but approximately it will take the same time. This is called analogous estimation. So let's take another example. If it took you 6 months to make a house of 200 square feet, if you want to make the same design, same size house, how much time it will take you? Yes,
Roughly.
yeah, roughly 6 months you will take. This is called the logos estimation. If you want to build a house of 400 square feet, now how much time will it take to you?
12 months.
12 months. So this is called parameters. You have utilized the parameters and multiply the parameters. This is called parametric estimation. So what is bottom up estimation? But we say, okay, if I want to cook a biryani, let's say how much time it will take to cook for meat, to get to the meat, how much time meat will get, then how much time oil will get fried, how much time rice will get fried. You combine all this and this is called bottom up estimation. The second example of house, okay, how much time to take to build the foundation, how much time it will take to make woodwork, the concrete work. So you add all the activities. You start from small bottom activities and you keep up adding up to the top. This is called bottom up estimation. So then we have 3 point estimation. For 3 point estimations, Instead of just taking one point as we were doing in analogous is also called as top down estimation. So what we do, we take best case scenario. Best case scenario is also called as optimistic point. We take worst case, the maximum duration it can take. We called it as pessimistic, and generally how much time it take, most likely. So we get 3 points here: optimistic, pessimistic, and most likely. So we have two formulas for it: triangular distribution. In triangular distribution, we take average of this, average of these, and second we have beta distribution, or it is also called as PERT. In beta distribution, we use this formula. Okay, 4 times most likely, optimistic, pessimistic, divided by 6. So then you also look at the reserves analysis. In data analysis, we have two things: alternate analysis and reserve analysis. In reserve analysis, we look at two types of analysis: contingency reserves and management reserve. Contingency reserves are for those known unknown risk. Known unknown risk
Unknown
means
risks.
known unknown. We already know this can happen, but we don't know will this happen or when this will happen. And in management reserve, we have unknown unknown risk. Unknown unknown risk. Unknown unknown risk. So many, then we have decision that multi-criteria or voting. We already discussed that in meetings. So output we get duration estimate, the estimate of the duration, how much time particular activity will take, and the basis of those estimate. We get plan updates, and in inputs we have, of course, all the activity list, milestone, some risk, resource calendar, all those things are in there. So now we have duration with us, we have network diagram, we have activity list, we have everything. So now we go to make the baselines. So let's go and make a baseline. Now we here in develop schedule, we made the schedule baseline. Four major output: schedule baseline, project schedule, schedule data, and project calendar. Schedule baseline is telling us this is the approved time version of all the activities and particular activities. Then project schedule, the network diagrams, the Gantt charts, schedule data, the facts, what are happening, the raw data, project calendar, the dates when we need some things. Okay, so in tools and technique, we use agile release planning. In agile, we work in iteration in 2 or 4 weeks. So one, we will release something that we will see in agile release planning. PMIS, we already discussed. Data leads and lag, we discussed. Critical path method, we already discussed. Schedule network diagram, we were analyzing different path. This is called schedule network analysis. Then now go to the data analysis. Data analysis of two type. One is what if scenario. In what if scenario, we try to find out the worst case. What is the worst case that can happen? The bad thing that can happen, the worst thing that can happen to anything. We see what if that happen, what if that happen, what if that happen, what if that happen. So we are utilizing, we are thinking the worst case. Okay, what we will do if this happen, what we will do if that happen. Okay, that is called what if scenario. In simulation, we are checking through Monte Carlo analysis what is the probability of something happening, probability distribution of something happening. So this is done. Then this is done. Leads and lag done. This is done. Then we are left with two techniques. You will get questions in the exam regarding these two techniques. One is called schedule compression. In schedule compression is two type. First is basically now you have a schedule, you have a timeline, you want to compress it, you want to small it. There are two ways how you can small your timeline. The first is crashing, add more resources, add more resources. This is called crashing. Once you add more resources, as a result, you have to add more cost. So in crashing, the schedule get compressed by adding the resources, but the cost get increased. In fast tracking, the activities that were in series, we do them in parallel. Activities that were in series, we do them in parallel. As a result, your risk get increased. You get more rework. The last technique of scheduling is resource optimization. We have two type of resource optimization: resource leveling and resource smoothing. In resource leveling, we make the schedule according to the availability of the resource. Okay, let's say a resource is busy at somewhere and we plan when they will come, then we can do this activity. As a result, what happen? All the resource get optimized, but schedule increases. The downsides is schedule increases. Remember, always there is never free lunch. There's always a downside to something. So in resource optimization, we optimize all resources, but the schedule get increases. In resource smoothing, we put the line, okay, we are not going to increase the schedule. This is for sure. Schedule we not increase, we put the limit and we optimize the resource accordingly within the schedule. As a result, the schedule does not get increases, but we can limit the optimization. So resource smoothing and resource leveling is clear. In resource smoothing, we put a deadline that we cannot increase the schedule and we optimize the resource in between. So we get these inputs, outputs, tools and technique. This process have maximum ITT on Pumbuk and this completes our schedule baseline. So now we go to the third baseline, cost baseline. How much the money we needed for all the activities. We have four process in cost: plan cost management, estimate cost and determine budget. Okay, and then we go to the control cost. So cost baseline will be created here. The first process is plan cost management. Similarly, like plan scope, plan schedule, we have plan cost management. We will get cost management plan here. Tools and techniques are almost same. Data analysis will be there and we'll get alternate analysis. Once again, I made a boo-boo, I made a mistake. Here it is enterprise environmental factor, not OPA, not work performance data. Output, I get cost management plan. Cost management plan will tell us what units we are going to measure, hours, days, currency, what reporting formats to use, what are the thresholds, how much accuracy is required, what is the unit of precision, is there any additional information required or not. So all these things will be mentioned here in cost management plan. Very important thing to understand that here we also manage what is the rough order of magnitude. Like initially, if we do the what is the rough order of magnitude, minus 25 plus 75. This is the rough order of magnitude for the cost, and this is an accurate estimate, minus 5 plus 10%. So we define that in cost management plan, which currency to use, which currency not to use. Then we go to the estimate cost. Similarly, like estimate schedule, we use the same technique, but in addition to that, we utilize one more technique, that is cost of quality. So we will discuss cost of quality. It is the amount of money you reserve for the quality cost. We get cost estimate, basis of estimate. So now just let's look at what is, because in cost in determine budget, cost aggregation is used. That is similar to the bottom up estimation that we are using it. So let's see, this is called cost aggregation or bottom up estimation. Baseline is made with the help of this. What we have activities, we have activities estimate. We start estimating the activities from the bottom and we kept on moving. Bottom up estimation, then we have estimate the work package with combined work package. We combine all the control accounts and we get project estimate. If we add project estimates and then we add contingency into reserve, we get cost baseline. Once again, cost baseline is a combination of estimates plus contingency reserves. Management reserves are not added into it. If you add management reserve, it become project budget or cost budget. Since management reserves are not added into the baseline, in order to use the management reserve, you need to make a formal change request. A very important slide to understand the complete cost chapter. And now let's look at the cost of quality. Cost of quality is the amount that money we need to separate for the quality cost. It consists of basically two types. Cost of conformance, the money spent during the project to avoid the failure, and cost of non-conformance, money spent during and after the project because of failure. So cost of conformance consists of prevention cost, like building a quality product. It includes training, documentation, testing, internal testing, then appraisal cost. Once the product is made, we assess the quality of the product. We conduct destructive testing, we do inspections, all these things. Then cost of non-conformance, the rework that internal failures have caused, the scrap, and cost of external failures, the defects that is found by the customer. So this is called as cost of quality. If we see, three type of costs are within the organization: the prevention, the training, process adherence, appraisal, the testing you are doing internal destructive, the failures you get internally. The one cost is from the customer, that is warranty, loss, all those things are called external failures. So once we understand that, we go to the third process in which we create cost baseline and project funding requirement. Cost baseline we discussed already, project funding requirement, when the funding of the project will be released, which funding will be released at which time. That is project funding requirement. So inputs are almost the same. The tools and technique we utilize: expert judgment. Cost aggregation is similar to bottom-up estimation. We do reserve analysis, contingency and management. We do historical information to see, can we use analogous and parametric. We check financing, how we are going to do the finance of this project. Then we reconcile the funding limit, when to release this money, when to release this money. These funding limit reconciliation directly are reflected in project funding requirement. So that's all about cost baseline, and that's all about three how three baselines are created.